Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, we'll start this Nazir daf Chaf Beis. We are going to begin on Chaf Beis and Alf at the very top line, Toshma. So we were in the middle of a discussion when a husband is mefer his wife's neder regarding to Nazirus. She wishes to become a Nazir and he has a right to remove it. Do we say that it is completely removed, Lamafreya, or Megas Gayas? Do we say that he does have it removed, but it's only from that point on? So he said, well, what's the nafkamina? Because either way, she's no longer a net, she's not a Nazir anyway, there's no din Nazirus on her. So there are nafkaminas of what happens in between. So for example, if let's say, we're going to see, her friend says va'ani, so the question is that chal? Because if you say megas gayas, so then at that moment, this second woman really should remain a Nazir. Okay, so and among other nafkaminas as well. So we're trying to understand what the din is. So Tashma, Ha'isha shenadru b'Nazir. Again, you have a woman who says that she is a Nazir, the nitmas, and she becomes tameh, which of course is against being a Nazira. Yachach hefer labala, and then her husband removes the Nazirus. So now let's understand. What is the din regarding this woman? Since she was tameh, mevia chatas oif and mevia olos. So she has to bring us. This is what we brought down before, a chatas oif, but not an olos oif. Now, what can we learn from here? If you want to tell me that when the husband makes the hafara on his wife's neder, that it only works makana laba, but she really was a Nazir, and then she became Tameh, then Tasi Nami Olsa Oaf. She should have to bring a Chatas Oaf and an Olsa Oaf. Why are we saying she doesn't bring an Olsa Oaf? Because she actually did become Tameh while she was a Nazir. The Elamai, Maker Ocker. It must be a Raya then, Maker Ocker, which is why she has to bring a carbon. That's why she does not rather have to bring an Olsa Oaf. So the Chatas Oaf Namilu Tasi. She shouldn't have to bring a chatas ov either. Why should she have to bring a chatas ov? You're right. Really, technically, she should not have to bring a chatas ov because she was fine. She became tummy, but since it worked l'mafreya, she was really not a nazir. So v'hamani Rabbi Elazar kafrahi, as we said before, the reason why you still have to bring it is because she still put herself in a position which she shouldn't have by wishing to become a nazir. As we saw this already on the previous daf, as well as another Masechtas, the Sanya. As we learned, it says as follows, and quoted in numerous other places. Rabbi Elazar Kafir Oimer Matabel Masher Chatu al Nefesh. This person sinned. So v'chibeiz a nefesh chatu. What sin did this person do, making yourself into a nazir? Because you separated yourself from wine. You're a sinner. Below the Kavachaymer. So we can make a kabel chaymer. So if a person, all they did was make themselves a nazir, which only restricts them from one food, which is wine, so nonetheless they're a sinner. So a person who just accepts upon themselves additional fasts, which they cannot eat anything, then certainly it's considered to be a chayte. Okay, so that is the reason. So if you look in the Mafarish, Rabbi Elazar Kafir says, "The Aimer did sarach kapara al shetziras maniyayin." You actually need a kapara for that because you're wrong for doing so. Okay. So if we look at the first top line of Taisus, so Hamani Rabbi Elazar Kafir and Perish will maker ocker. Really, it's completely removed. So if it's completely removed, so then that makes sense why you shouldn't have to bring an olsop. Why a chatas ov? All this. Okay. Toshma. The Sanya Behedid says explicitly, a woman says, I'm a Nazir. The Shama Chaverta and her friend, not her co-wife, but her friend hears this, and she says, and I also want to be. So now the husband comes and is made for this woman's neder. So he muteres, the din is that she's muter, the chaverta asura, but her friend is still usur. Why? It must be shmamin balas megas gayas. It's a double pashit that it only works mekan laba. That's why it's this woman, the second woman, is still usher. Because she, at the time that the second woman said Vani, it's linked to, there's a hatfasa on someone who was actually a Nazir. It was only removed Makano Abba. So therefore it's a Raya Migas Gaias. Because otherwise, why would we say Chaverta is a Surah? She should also be Mutter. And then we have Rabbi Shimon Aimer. Rabbi Shimon says, Im Amrla Hareini Kamoischa, if the second woman would have said, I am like you, Shtein Mutaros. Then in that situation, the din is that both of them will be Mutter. Okay. If we look in the Rosh, Rav Shimon Aimer Im Amr Hareini Kamoischa Shtein Mutaros, Tikivan She'amr Zehalashon, since she said it in that exact way, Daita, her intention was Imis Batal Nizra Shigam Shli Batal, that if hers is removed, mine will be removed. So if you stipulate it in that language, so then it will cause the Naziris to be removed. It's a raya that Mal is Megas Gaias. As we continue Chaf Beis Mid Beis, so Gemara says like this: Marzutra Berei Mari Omer Hi. This is the explanation, the reasoning of Rabbi Barchama. He says like this: the boy Rabbi Barchama, that maybe we could say that this whole question of Baal Megas Gaias when it comes to a Nazirus is the same thing as the following, seemingly unrelated topic. The boy Rabbi Barchama, how are you like a person says regarding other food that this other food is kapasir zevach shlamim, has the same status as a carbon shlamim. Now, when we think about this, so if we look in the Mefarish, he says, the Mari Omer, Hadi boylan hacha isha shenad benazir v'shema chavertim yom rabani v'shema bal shal rishenim heferla. So a feel man yom rabal migas gaias hainu demoy Rabbi Barchama. There's actually a question by Rabbi Barchama, even if you hold Baal's megas gaias b'kan ba. So what is the case? You have in front of you a meat of a shlamim. So, and you have kosher regular meat in front of you, and say this regular meat should have the same status as this carbon. No matter what's the din? So now it's meat, right? Which means it was already after Zrika's dam. So, but do we say that when you made this hatfasa, it's going back to before the Zrika, in which the meat was aser, or odilma b'tsnana matvis? Or do we say we go basar b'saif, after the Zrika, where the meat was already mutter? So if you look in the Mefarish, dilma b'tsnana matvis, batera de isbe, v'hainu l'achar Zrika, shehuter basar b'achil v'sharia, that you're allowed to eat this meat after the Zrika, but snana hainu l'b'sof. The word snana is the same language as at the end. The whole davar shehu cham, anything that is hot, mitztanin l'b'sof, gets cooled off at the end. I think that's how we read that. So maybe we should say the same thing when it comes to this woman, says Mefarish. Ki amar bani, the second woman says, and I, I amrit dimi kara matfis havila k'kaidim hafara v'asira. So if you want to say that when she made the statement of ani, she's linking to before the hafara. V'i amrit dematfasa b'tsnana, if you go it's besof, havila k'le'achar hafara v'sharia. So maybe it's based on this question. Do we go just like before the Zrika or after the Zrika? Do we say you go before the Hafar or after the Hafar? Which would question whether or not the second woman is mutter or not. Whereas this Midam, you can't compare the two. Hasam, over there, Kivan, the Amar Harayalai Kabasar Zevach Shlamim, once you do this statement of this regular meat and comparing it to the carbon Shlamim, Afagav Doli Achar Shenizuk Damo, even if it's after Zrika's Dam, which the meat is completely mutter, Matzi Achalei B'chutz. So eat it, you can eat it outside. Mikdash Kaddish, it's still Kaddish. In other words, even if you eat a carbon shlomim not in the right place, which is chutz l'zmana, chutzum kaimai, which is a form of pigel, or the machshava would be chutzum kaimo, but if you would eat it outside, it's still Kaddish. Even if you brought it b'chutz. Says the Mefarish, Mikdash Kaddish, Te'enu Nechel El L'shnei Yom V'Layl Echad. So you only have a certain amount of time to do Shlomim. The Ikol Meimer Hachi, Itvis, B'tzinna, the Im Lo Kain, Mayahane Dibure. Avo Hacha, Isach Atadach B'snana Kamatvis, when it comes to this woman making this neder, and says bani, if we go baser b'soif, the end, when the heter it was already removed, the hafara, hafar labala, the husband was mefer. And some say not that was a question, but rather it was certainly that this is the same thing. When the first woman's husband is mefer, I too will be mutter. Okay. Look at the Mefarish. Ikad Yamar Hanu Rabbi Marchama the Yamar Afal Gav Del Yachas Rikas Damim Mikdash Kaddish Kivanda Matzi Achalei Chutz L'Chaimis Azara B'Chol Ir I Amar B'Tzina Tafas Vade Shari El Hachi Boilach. Okay, fine. So let's look at question 1. Isha Shanada Benaz B'Shem Chaver Tav Yamar Bani the Hefer Lo Baal Shel Rishayna Chaverta Asura. So the Chaverta is Asur. Why would she be aser? Because the megas gaias. So ma'atam demand the armor the yefshel livshain is a iboya the rachama the armor kabasas of shlomim be karam the karam kamatfas. Now when it comes to the shlomim that we go baser mikara, that it's aser because it was before the zrika. So he says like this: the baser shlomim ikanami hash to kedushel inyan chutz l'zman chutz limkaiman kiyatzba. When it comes to baser shlomim, you still have the kedusha that it cannot be eaten outside the place or right time. When the husband is mefer, inkan iser klal. There's no iser at all. There's no question that certainly the mikara matvis, and therefore that's the reason why it should be aser, because of that. Weiter. Amrullah, the second woman says, Hareni Nazira bi'ikvecha. Mahu, I am a Nazir just like in your footsteps. The question is, what exactly does that mean? Hareni bikvecha bekuli milse, I'm just like you in every matter, and therefore Visharya, once the first woman's husband was mefer, so too I'm going to be mutter. Dilma kimei delayfrla bala viasira. I'm going to go only based on before your husband is mefer, and therefore I'll still remain aser. So what does it mean when someone who says Harin Nazir bikvecha? So Tashma, Isha Shanada Banaz Veshama Bala, a woman makes a neder, her husband hears it, and the husband is the second person, so he links himself to her. So in Yachal Hofer, we said he cannot be made for her neder because Lo Yachal Davaro, you can only remove someone else's, you can't remove your own. But since the husband who said Bani is linked, his chalois of his neder, of his naziris is linked to his wife. If he removes his wife's, then he'll be removed as well, and he's not able to physically have that done. So just like he can't have he can't remove it by himself, so he also can't remove hers, which would cause his to be removed. Now, so if you want to tell me, when a woman says, I am like in your footsteps, B'ikar kamatvis, that she is aser because we're going how it was before, so leifer lo lidida, so let him be made for his wife, like him today, and then he'll still be able to keep his. So he's not doing anything, because if it's true that it's not that it's exactly like you, so then the din should be that he should be able to be made for his wife's neder, because by being made for his wife's neder will not impact his own statement of ani, because ani or bikvecha, which we're linking the two, we're basically saying that it doesn't mean that you're completely like them. It just means accepting upon nazirus before any potential hafara takes place, which means I'll still be aser. So elav shemamida bekul de milsa matvis. It must be that kul milsa the matvis. Why? Because since we're saying that you cannot be made for your wife's neder, why not? It's because it's clear by you doing that, it will remove your neder. So if that, it will remove you. And therefore, why? It's because the second person, it's bekul and milsa matvis. He's saying it's exactly like, I'm going to be exactly like her. So once she's mutter, then he'll be mutter, but he's not allowed to remove his own. The hilka chud deloy matzi mefer, he cannot be mefer. So therefore, it won't work. Ha'isha de'amr hareni bikvecha. Well, how that's the case of the man says ani. Maybe a woman who says Hareni bikvecha, I'm in your footsteps. He nami muteres. Maybe in that situation, she will be mutter. Maybe there's a difference between the husband's statement and this statement of Hareini Bekvecha. Lo, oyom bi kara matvis. Really, maybe also in this situation, it's actually be kara matvis, and therefore it's usher. So v'halchi hivandi amrli vani. But since he said the word vani, kamer kaim lichidami. The vani is actually much stronger, because by saying ani, you're actually doing a hakama. And therefore, v'it mitchell kadmasai matzimefer. Only if you remove it, if you have it removed through a chacham, then it'll work. Otherwise, not. Question 2. Hareini Nazir bekvecha. Mahu bekul milsi v'sharya o bikvi b'kamei d'leifer bal v'asura. Mehechen ratzo h'gemara lifshait b'yedzu uman dachu. It's a hard answer because it's a long answer. We want to answer based on the situation where a woman makes a neder and the husband hears it and says an I, that the husband cannot be mefer, which is mashma, it must be the bekul milsa mitzvahs, because otherwise that's the reason why he can't remove hers, because that will also cause his to be removed. Therefore, enu mefer, therefore cannot be mefer. Dim king gam hu yem mutter v'ka'avr bo yachel. As we said, so that's a good answer. V'dachi, but we answered against this. We said hainu time deinu mefer. Maybe the only reason why you can't be mefer is dafka when you say vani. Mishum de'amiraso vani. When you actually say the words vani, it's oimer kaimlich. It's as if you're doing hakama, and since you're actually validating it, so therefore once you've done that, there's nothing you can do about it unless you go to a chacham to have it removed. Hareini Nazir va'at. So it says, I'm a Nazir. Va'at, and you, the Amra main, and then someone says, yes. Mefer es shalah, the shalo kayim. So the din is that you can be made for hers, but his still stays. Raminahu Hareini Nazir, I'm a Nazir. The at, how about you? The Amra main, shnei masurin. It doesn't say that one is asur and one is mutar. Shnei masurin. So the imlav shnei mutarin. And if you don't say amen, then they're both mutter. So how do we answer this? So Rabbi Yehuda tini mefer as shlah. It just means you made for her the shlo kayim. So you actually have to change the girsa. Abai amar fil teima kediktani. Brisa kegoin de ka'amru la hareini nazir. The Brisa nominally says I'm a nazir. If you and you the katali nidra benidra. In that situation, when you're toila neder benidra, that's why the other person will become mutter too. However, as we continue, my new what? Mishum hachi mefer at shala v'shlo kayim. In that situation, hers will be removed, but his will remain. Okay. Question, maybe, TA 27. Ha'isha shenadar ben Nazir. The shama b'avir b'ani enu yachol hafer. Be'ez oifen yachol hafer. So how could he be mefer? So he said the maskana im yishol al hakamaso, if he's shoyal on his hakama, va'ani havi kahakama, because ani is akin to hakama. So is TA 27. Okay, which we had this before, but that's where we're gonna say the answer is. Okay. Question, I didn't do that one yet. TB 28, maybe. Ha'isha shenadu ben Nazir. We had this before. Previous daf. Let's see this. Ha'isha shenadu ben Nazir. The frisha karbanos tahara tuma. Right? She was mafresh karbanos. So the question is, v'yacha hefer labal, and this was made for the husband was mayfair. Let's see where this was. Okay. V'hifrisha, it's the case of v'hifrisha behemta, which is on Chaf Aleph from the base. So, madin hachatis bofanim elu. Okay. So, by Naziris tahara, dihi behematomus. So he said when it comes to her animals, if it's her animal, TB 28, so the animal will die, because like a chatos shemesa ba'aleha. And but Nazir's Tuma, Dehu Of Karev, Rebbe Lezer Copper. However, like Rebbe Lezer Copper said that in fact you would bring this carbon up an Ola Chatas because Tzir Atzmo Min Hayayin. Adkan.